We're now on our way to the small bay of Sallyhamner, where we'll be getting ready for our final leg to reach the most northern point we'll be able to achieve on this trip. We're up in the high Arctic on the northwest coast of Svalbard, only 600 miles from the North Pole, where we aim to reach the latitude of 80 degrees.
As you can see here, the navionics charts that we use for our chart plot are cut off the top of Svalbard, so we'll actually be sailing off the chart. And we won't be able to use these charts beyond the fjord that we're leaving here, as at any kind of useful zoomed level, it won't actually let you scroll any further north. We are, however, also carrying paper charts for the whole of Svalbard, and though it's not always practical to carry them for everywhere you go, we do still prefer them for passage planning over using electronic charts. This means that the last 30 miles up the coast and then beyond, we're having to use our backup charts and software on the laptop.
We're here at Sallyhamner, which will be our last landfall before the final push up to 80 north, and then returning to make our way back down the coast. Getting ready to go ashore around here takes a little more prep than normal, and there are a few extra items that are required. Beyond the need to bring the rifle, some of the other items we take are the sat phone, rocket flares, foghorn and the dinghy puncture repair kit. The foghorn and flares would be our first line of defence, used as a deterrent and a scare tactic in the event of encountering an overly inquisitive polar bear. The rifle is only carried as an ultimate last resort in the case of a direct attack.
The logs that you can see on the beach here will have mainly originated from forestry sites in northern Russia and Siberia. As they drift them down the rivers and then transport them along the coast, some of them break free, and then the current carries them across the Barents Sea and along the coast to here. In fact, we saw a couple of these in the water on the crossing on the way up from Bjornøya, and in a GRP boat like ours, you definitely want to try and avoid hitting them.
This is an old trapper's hut that was apparently still in use until about 20 years ago, but I guess that one too many bears looking for food had left it in a state where it was no longer viable to repair. Imagine being sat in here while a hungry bear tries to rip the wall off. Even with a gun, you'd still be scared shitless.
We left this snug little anchorage and made a break for our latitudinal high point. We did originally want to try and make it far enough to see the pack ice, but it's already late July, and this year the ice has retracted even further north than expected. Another consideration was that the wind had shifted and was now coming from the north, and this could cause problems with encountering increased drift ice. It was also looking to build further in strength offshore over the next few days, so we decided that the arbitrary figure of latitude of 80 north would be as far as we could sensibly make it this time.
freeze, it's bloody horrible. It's cold, it's wet, it's raining and it's a bit choppy. Woo!
After our unceremonious reaching of 80 degrees, we turned around and headed back to shore, in search of hopefully spotting some more wildlife.
We found another nice secure anchorage in front of a glacier where we got some rest. The tide had already turned before we decided to leave, and though where we'd been anchored was well protected, there were some bigger bits building up around the entrance. I armed myself with the now infamous Bergy Bit pokey stick, and we tentatively made our way back out into the main fjord and headed for the island of Blomstrandøya in Kongsfjorden. Very blue.
We're at New London, which means New London, and this was established and imaginatively named, unsurprisingly by an Englishman, just over 110 years ago. The site was originally set up as a prospective marble mine, but it failed as an enterprise almost immediately due to the marble being fractured beyond any use as a result of frost damage. As we made our way deeper down into the fjord, a combination of the flat calm water, fog and ice made this one of the most eerily beautiful sights of the trip, and the whole thing felt quite surreal.
We knew that this glacier was accessible by boat, and we'd seen another vessel larger than ours on the AIS the day before, just a couple of 100 metres away from the face. Our paper chart was a little more accurate, but according to the navionics chart, our position was showing that we were over half a mile on land, yet we had 60 metres of water under the keel. Not that you should ever be blindly following a chart or the position on a chart plotter anyway, but that is definitely the case up here. Especially in these fjords, you need to constantly monitor the depth, as the meltwater from the glaciers carries a huge amount of silt and sandbars move regularly. These can be created or disappear from one season to the next.
Whenever we were sailing within a mile or so of the coast, we'd been on a constant vigil on the lookout for a polar bear. And there'd been a number of times we'd stopped or doubled back to stare at a patch of snow or a pale coloured rock through the binoculars, discussing whether we'd seen it move or not. I don't know how Sally managed to spot these two in the distance, as they must have been well over a mile away from us when she first saw them. This was just on the other side of the island we'd been at the day before when we were visiting near London. Due to the increasing lack of ice and therefore the seals that live on it for them to feed on, we've seen photos and videos recently of bears looking malnourished and not in the best of health, but we were glad to see that these two were looking pretty good and healthy. I apologise for the poor quality of the footage here, but they were pretty far away. They eventually settled down to rest, though the mother did seem a little nervous and she definitely knew we were there. They both kept an eye on us for quite a while. Well, maybe it wasn't just us.
It was a huge privilege to be able to watch this mother and cub in their natural habitat from the safety of our boat. We stayed for well over an hour before moving on to our next anchorage. Join us in the next video, where we encounter walruses, a huge pod of beluga whales, and get to explore the abandoned Russian mining town of Pyramiden.